Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Sarah Jenkins. I'm the Director of Quality, Clinical Quality and Staff Development here at OBC. And today I'm going to be sharing some information about managing behavior using behavior contracts. So we likely are feeling fairly similar things or experiencing similar things. Our kids have been home with us, perhaps more so than ever. And this may be particularly true if your child is doing distance learning, or maybe they're having their services now at home when they were previously in clinic. And with all this togetherness, our nerves can get frayed with the need to address challenging behavior. Maybe we're trying to get our child to complete a chore or their schoolwork, or maybe even just trying to get them to go to bed at a reasonable hour. Enter behavior contracts. Now, behavior contracts are simple verbal or written agreements we can use to work collaboratively with our child to set expectations. So what we're doing is specifying a task requirement, such as sweeping the floor, completing homework, and then the consequence of doing so. So what our child is getting in return. And with the consistent use of behavior contracts, what we may see over time is that our child doesn't mind completing some of these tasks. Nay, I say they kind of enjoy it, or at the very least, they're staying on task more, or they're holding themselves more accountable for holding up their end of the contract because they want to access some really cool things, an activity or an item. So let's break down the components of a behavior contract. We have the task, so that's what will be completed by the child, and then we have what they'll earn afterwards, so that's the activity or the item. So we'll break this down further. So we start with the task that we need or we want our child to complete. It could be related to school, it could be a chore at home. It could even be a general behavior expectation. Regardless of what that task is, it should be age appropriate. And now there's a caveat with that even tasks that we are trying to teach our child to do independently, they are still okay to use as part of a behavioral contract. We're just going to provide additional prompting or assistance until the child can do that independently. A task should also be time feasible. So we're not setting a time limit or expectation that is unreasonable for the child's age, developmental level, or just general feasibility of completing that specific tasks. And then the other piece is that the child should have access to any materials needed to successfully complete the agreed upon task. Now, behavior contracts can include one task or multiple tasks, and whatever is appropriate for your child. But just remember that all of those tasks need to meet the criteria that we just reviewed. So then you'll identify, by collaborating with your child, the consequence or the reward for completing the task. It could easily be accomplished by asking your child, hey, what do you want to work for? And use your child's communication modality to your advantage. So if your child uses signs or uses some type of gesture, have them communicate with you and show you what they want to do. If your child can vocalize, have them tell you in a full sentence, and really capitalize on those opportunities to use full sentences if that is the type of communication opportunity or goal your child is working on. Now, as a whole, really consider what type of general access they have to preferred items or activities. They may find more value, or they'll work harder for items they don't have normal access to or can't have all the time. So you may even consider reserving some of those highly preferred activities or items for when they complete a task. So if a child always has access to a tablet, they may not be motivated to actually work for it because they otherwise are able to freely use it. Conversely, if the tablet is only used and only available after they complete a task, they likely will be motivated to complete whatever task is part of that behavior contract so that they can play with their fun tablet. Now, when agreeing on reward, it's important to think about the task the child is actually completing. So more difficult or less preferred tasks should result in higher preferred items or activities. So more effort equals better or bigger reward. All right, so now that the task and reward have been decided, before deciding that proverbial dotted line, Make sure your child understands the expectations. So be clear about what the task is, how they should complete it, if there's a time frame that they should be completing it in, and then what they'll get at the end when they've met those requirements. Now you may be thinking, my child probably won't stay on task the entire time, and I'll probably have to provide a lot of prompting just for him to get back to work. Well, that may be the case, particularly early on when using these behavior contracts, but use these as opportunities to provide reminders of the contract. Use when-then statements. So when you complete X, then you can do Y. And repeat those and make sure that your child is understanding what their behavior results in. What is the outcome of completing that task? Now, if your child is struggling to complete a task for whatever reason, as they are working through the behavior contract, consider adjusting or decreasing the requirements. This may also mean, though, that you are adjusting their access to the preferred item or activity. But talk with them about it as a compromise. So yes, you get access to this item, this activity, and it is in a modified way, but it's because you don't have to do as much of X. It's because you don't have to do as long of an activity doing Y. Now, there are some caveats I do want to mention related to adjusting expectations. The first one, try not to make it a habit adjusting the task or the reward mid-contract. What could happen over time is that your child learns that expectations will be changed if they behave in a certain way. So if they don't comply with the contract, if they don't even attempt it, someone will adjust the expectations if you do this many, many times over and over. The second caveat is try to avoid increasing task requirements mid-contract specifically. So let the child fulfill the contract as is and then adjust future contracts accordingly. So if something was a little too maybe easy, or the requirement wasn't as high given the outcomes or what they'll be getting in the future, just know that for future contracts and adjust whatever expectations or requirements next time they complete that specific task. Now, behavior contracts only work if both parties hold up their end of the deal. Completion of the task should always result in immediate access to the preferred item or activity. And there is really no limit on the number of contracts that you're using with your child. So when one is complete, set up another. Lather, rinse, repeat. Now, here are some examples of behavior contracts you could set up pretty feasibly within your own house with your children. So the first one, we need our child to complete math homework. So I ask, hey, what do you want to work for? We need to complete this math homework, let's say by the end of the night. What do you want in return for that? So your child says, I want to play video games. So maybe they say, I want to play 15 minutes of video games. Maybe that's too much given what the math problems are. So let's compromise and say 10. When you complete your math homework, you will have 10 minutes of video game play. And we're going to make an assumption that video games aren't freely available so that our child will be motivated to complete that math homework to be able to have fun with video games. The next task could be eating veggies on a plate. So eat the broccoli on your plate. What do you want in return for eating all your broccoli? Well, I want a cookie. Great, all right. You eat your broccoli, then you can have a cookie. And so as soon as completion of that task, so eating all that broccoli, here's your cookie. Great job working. And really, all of these tasks are considered working, whether it's eating, completing homework, sweeping the floor, even going to bed on time, which I don't even have an example listed here, but that could be an example of a task that you want them to complete. All right, some other examples. I really want you to stay calm in the store. And so what do you get for that? Well, I want a piece of candy. All right, I can do that. That seems reasonable for how long we're going to be in the store and maybe even what type of store it is. So that's something that I could fulfill if you stay calm in the store. All right, great. You stay calm. Here's your piece of candy. Great job. I really appreciate you doing such a great job. Your behavior was awesome. All right, the fourth and last example. We have two tasks identified. Clean your room once a week and take out the trash unprompted. So if you do those two things, you will get a weekly $5 allowance. Now we're assuming that if one or both of these requirements are not met, they don't get the required or the weekly allowance. So again, if cleaning their room and taking out the trash is too much for them for any given reason, make an adjustment, but also make an adjustment for the allowance. If it's okay for 1 week and then we need to adjust for future contracts, do that as well. But make sure your child understands what those expectations are. Always review what is the task and what they will get in return, and provide those reminders. Lather, rinse, repeat. All right. Well, thank you so much. I very much appreciate everyone's time. We have some extra time for questions if anyone has any.
Cool. I'll actually hop in with one so in that troubleshooting section, there was like one aspect where you mentioned you have to check yourself for if you're regularly adjusting expectations or and what do you have any, would you have any tips or on how you would kind of just check yourself that you're adjusting too soon or adjusting regularly when you shouldn't? Or yeah.
Sure, that's a really great question. So first you have to see if the task is truly feasible to complete. So if your child is struggling to complete it, whether it's they don't know how to do it, providing additional assistance could help you not adjust the task, but just provide more help so that they can fulfill that contract. They still get the reward. So see if assistance is needed before even adjusting. But over time, let's say it's the same task and we see the same type of struggle. They get to X point in the task and then they fall apart. They start crying. Maybe they start even throwing things around the room. There may be something to the task, something that is aversive. So is it too difficult? Again, going back to they need more assistance. If it's math homework, maybe they get to the division part of their homework and that is more difficult. Let's provide more assistance. If it's a physical task and let's say it's completing, let's say laundry, maybe they are unable to start the laundry or the machine. And so maybe that's something that you step in. Okay, I will do this portion of the steps of completing laundry, and then you do the rest. That would be an appropriate adjustment mid-contract. And then future contracts should include that general assistance with appropriate assistance thereafter if help is needed. And generally speaking, it's okay to provide prompts. It's okay to provide assistance. We want to be able to have our child request, like, hey, I'm having a difficult time, or can you help me with this? And so we want to encourage that type of communication, that type of language. There's no reason to adjust any rewards or any type of task requirements in those scenarios. If we thought a task was appropriate, so we thought it was age appropriate, developmentally appropriate, time and all that kind of stuff, and it truly wasn't. So maybe it was the time piece that we said, okay, well, this task should take you 10 minutes, but it's not, and it consistently is a source of maybe stress or problem behavior. It's something that does need to be adjusted. If it's mid-contract, maybe you say, okay, we'll give you 15 minutes. Given that, you could adjust some of the activity or the reward that they're getting. If it's a really highly non-preferred task, but they're still working through it, I would keep the reward the same. They're working really hard. It just may be very difficult to complete it in the time frame or to complete it without a certain type of prompt or assistance.
Cool. Yeah, that helps shed some light on that, and I think there's a lot about kind of just managing yourself in that whole interaction as well.
For sure. And I mean, you know your child the best. So if something really isn't working, just make the adjustment. And it doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, they're going to learn from this one example that they'll have their way no matter what. That was one example. What we don't want to see is, okay, let's set this behavior contract. You need to eat all of your broccoli, then you get your cookie. Oh, okay, well maybe you just eat 2 pieces of broccoli. And then the next contract. Oh, well, maybe you just eat one piece of your broccoli. That's what we don't want to
Right.
see.
Right. That's exactly what I was. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Um, I that was super helpful. I don't see any other questions,
Okay.
so I'll call it that. If there's anything else, any viewers later are welcome to message us. There will be some contact info, and or just talk to your OVC therapist. Yeah,
Perfect.
awesome.
Well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.